In the spirit of the holidays, we want you to celebrate with your favorite Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicappers and do it at a discount by giving you a one-time 25% off everything you can fit into your cart between now and midnight on December 25th using coupon code GIFT25 when checking out. While this coupon can only be used once at Wager Talk and once at Sports Memo, the value is unlimited and there is no limit on what you can add to your cart when redeeming. Daily, all access, season, pick your team, and even mix and match handicappers as the combinations are endless. Remember, there is no limit to the number of handicappers at Wager Talk and Sports Memo you can lock in, but coupon code GIFT25 will expire at midnight on Christmas. On behalf of everyone at Wager Talk, Sports Memo, and Gold Sheet, we want to thank you for supporting us in 2022 by watching our videos, following us on social media, and trusting us with your wagers. However you celebrate, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Welcome into the best damn college football show out there. Drew Martin, Ralph Michaels, Robbie Veno breaking down 4 bowl games on the slate. Ralph Michaels, Stat Daddy himself, pens up, buddy. Welcome in. How's bowl season going? How's life going, Ralph?
Hey, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone. Doing well. Bowls off to a nice 2-0-1 start, another winning NFL weekend. My college basketball, I have absolutely sucked the past week, so I've lowered my volume past a couple of days, and we'll get right back to it. So one of those holiday things where you handicap one way, but sometimes during these holidays, the crowds aren't the same, the home field edges aren't the same, and you got to make some adjustments.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Ralph. And guys, he's a wise enough and a good enough bettor to lower the volume when he's not seeing it. Something that I always try to tell newcomers coming up, watch the volume if you're not seeing it well, and then come back with the volume when you are seeing it well. We got Robbie Veno as well at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter, wagertalk.com. Robbie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Drew. What a great time of year, right? Bowl games every single day, almost every single hour upcoming as we get deeper into this. But good day yesterday as far as college basketball was concerned. Speaking of lowering the volume, because I have not paid as extreme attention to college hoop as I normally would come January 1, I decided this year to lower the volume for these first 5-6 weeks, and it's gotten me to a 9-3 start in college hoop, which is just very, very selective at this point in time. Had Providence last night, a little bit lucky, double OT winner, but as far as bowl games are concerned, a pair of 5-star blue chip releases up and available right now at wagertalk.com. They're games that are down the road, Drew, but numbers, as we see each and every day, these numbers go a little bit haywire. Like to get in on it for the clients early while the number is still in a place where I believe it's, where we can take advantage of it. So, yeah, a couple of big plays up and available, and also a play on this evening's game between Western Kentucky and South Alabama.
Little heading to the Big Easy there. Yeah, so we got some plays up and available for the bowl game tonight, guys. If you're watching live, please smash that like button. Feel free to chime in the chat box as well, as we're breaking down 4 games here. We got the Birmingham Bowl, Protective Stadium, Birmingham, Alabama, East Carolina, and Coastal Carolina. Ralph, coming to you first, man. 6:45, December 27th. We got the Pirates and the Chanticleers. We're seeing ECU minus 7.5 point favorites, 62.5 being the total. Jamie Chadwell, he's leaving Coastal and heading to Liberty. How much you think that's going to affect the Chanticleers? And what are your thoughts here? ECU and Coastal Carolina, Ralph.
Well, we saw this opening number jump to 11.5 because of the transfer portal of Grayson McCall, and then their number 2 quarterback, Bryce Carpenter, getting suspended. But then McCall says, yeah, I'm going to transfer, but now I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back and play. So, we see the line another 4-point move, and I think that's about the right move. They have 2 big opt-outs. Their center, Lampkin, who is a first-team Sun Belt Conference player, is sitting out, as is their best rusher, Hosea Stewart. On the East Carolina side, Harris is injured. Their tight ends, Jones is opting out. Jones hasn't had a great season, but I think he's needed in this. And they do have 2 transfer portal guys from some guys that were contributors, but not main all-conference starters. I look at it and, I went to the stat guide to look at the numbers, and the numbers clearly like East Carolina in this. And you look at the situation where Coastal Carolina has only played 3 teams with winning records this year, 3 FBS teams with winning records, and they were outgained by 145 yards per game. Now, 2 of those were end of the season, James Madison and Troy, where they lost 47-7 and 45-26, where McCall was hurt for part of it and then came back for the second game, but was basically mauled out. Coastal on the season, they've played the number 93 schedule, but they were outgained on the season year to date. So that is a concern to me. I like East Carolina. The numbers say East Carolina, but I just don't trust East Carolina as a favorite in this role. You look at them down the stretch. They went 1-4 ATS as a favorite their last 5 games. They lost 2 of those 3 games outright. So situation, East Carolina, quarterback edge, you would think would go to McCall, but the way Ehlers has played, that's not really an edge. But passing on the game because of East Carolina's penchant as a favorite at the end of the season.
Robbie, Ralph touched on it in terms of this line. This has been all over the place, guys. And what's really cool about Wager Talk live odds screen, best free live odds in the industry, is you can click on the number and see, exactly the time that the line's moving. And to Ralph's point here, Robbie, it opened 6.5 offshore, and then it went as high as 13.5, almost a touchdown move. And now it's come all the way back down to 7.5 now. This has been a wild roller coaster ride here. What are you thinking? Are you agreeing with the move up? Or are you agreeing with the move down? What are you thinking here, Coastal Carolina and ECU, Robbie?
Well, I can start, Drew, with where my power ratings suggested on a neutral field this game should be played without considering anything, right? The power ratings are just raw talent. It wasn't considering coaching switch. McCall's entering the transfer portal at the time. It showed ECU -4.5. As you mentioned, it came out 6.5. I think obviously that had to do with the coaching move. And then, of course, the big jump due to the quarterback, Grayson McCall. And you should be happy, Drew. I believe he visited Auburn. Without McCall and without Carpenter, Coastal would be in deep trouble at quarterback play. So I can understand the touchdown line swing backward once McCall said he would play here. And I think it's huge to note that Grayson McCall feels like he wants to go out and play this game with his teammates. As Ralph mentioned, he's hurt the last couple. He did play in the Sun Belt Championship. He wasn't quite himself, but the second half, he started to direct the offense in the right direction. That probably continues here. It's in these early bowls, it's been seldom where you have both starting quarterbacks from the season in the game. We'll have them both here. So I think both of these quarterbacks can direct their offenses against what are really poor defense. The end of the season for both of these teams, forget about Grayson McCall being injured offensively. What happened to Coastal Carolina defensively was unbelievable at the end of the year. I'm just going to go through the last 2 games played by both of these teams heading into this bowl. ECU, home against Houston, at Temple. What happens in those 2 games? They give up 42 and 46 points, 515 and 575 total yards, 435 through the air, 527 through the air to Kurt Warner's son, DJ Warner of Temple. 7.6 a play against Houston. They allowed 7.4 against Temple. That totals out, guys, to 88 points allowed in 2 games, 1,090 yards, 962 of those through the air, 7.5 yards per play on the ground. That may be a reason why Grayson McCall decided to come back. What the heck? He's going to put up some numbers here against that defense. However, as I mentioned, Coastal just as bad. Last 2 games were at JMU, at Troy. 47 and 45 points allowed for a total of 92. 502, 411 total yards allowed. 913 total, 287, 318, both through the air, and 7.6, 7.8 per play, 7.7 per play. Guys, over 7 yards per play is hideous defense, and both of these teams did it to close the season. I don't know that those numbers get any better here. You know, the line is going all over the place. The total's kind of sat still. I think 62.5 is a playable number here. Had to go ahead and check. You have to worry about the weather here. Protective Stadium, Birmingham, Alabama. This is not an indoor game. It's an outdoor game on the 27th at 5:45 Central Time. Weather for the 4-hour window where this will be played, 33 to 37 degrees and clear. Birmingham's going through an even colder spell right now, but temperatures are going to pick up as we head toward the game or the day of this game. So I think dry field, clear track, 2 quarterbacks that direct really good offenses against poor defenses. Give me over 62.5.
Guaranteed rate bowl up next, guys. Oklahoma State and Wisconsin. Chase Field, that's where the Arizona Diamondbacks play. So we get a little baseball stadium feel here. Robbie, coming to you first. 43 low total here. -3 in the hook. That's Wisconsin, the Badgers as the favorite. 10:15 Eastern, 7:15 Pacific kick. The nightcap on Tuesday, December 27th. Are you liking anything in the Big 12, Big 10 matchup here, Robbie?
Well, unlike the game we just talked about, Drew, quarterback play here is brutal, right? I mean, Spencer Sanders is in the portal. Graham Mertz, not that he was outstanding to begin with, he also in the portal. It leaves Oklahoma State. We've seen this the last couple of games of the season with Garrett Rangel, or perhaps coach's son, Gunnar Gundy. On the other side for Wisconsin, you'll have either Chase Wolf, a senior who only threw 6 passes this year, or a freshman in Miles Burkett, who only threw 5 passes this year. So Wisconsin certainly at a disadvantage from Graham Mertz, even though Graham Mertz is not a huge elite type quarterback. This is a step down in class. It's also a step down in class for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has played with this step down in class longer, as I mentioned, for a couple of games with these guys. So I would give the edge at QB to Oklahoma State here. The Wisconsin coaching situation, obviously, the Luke Fickell's the new head coach here, but the coordinators are going to coach this game. Jim Leonard will remain interim head coach. He'll coach the defense. Bobby Ingram's going to coach the offense. It's interesting, guys, from what I read, Luke Fickell's been hanging around the team for this game, and, you know, he's had a little bit to say to players. I don't know what he's got to do with game planning here. He may suggest a couple of things that he would like to see in this game out of the talent on the field. But we know this. It's an audition for every Wisconsin player for their new head coach. And for Bobby Ingram, I wouldn't say for Jim Leonard, because I feel like Jim Leonard will get a job anyway. But for Bobby Ingram as a play caller here, it could be an audition for him to get his next job, wherever that may be. The defense is probably rule here just because the offenses are so poor. I mean, where Wisconsin's concerned, you've got one weapon. Your quarterback certainly isn't a weapon throwing the football. Your weapon is Braylon Allen, the running back. Oklahoma State probably shoves 9 guys within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage on every play and dares Wisconsin to throw. On the other side, again, Rangel has not been good at quarterback. So Oklahoma State doesn't really pose that much of a threat against Wisconsin's defense. All that being said, if you ask me who I trust in this game, I would certainly trust the play calling and the diversity of play calling with Mike Gundy much more than I would with a couple of coordinators maybe taking direction from an incoming head coach. Those 2 guys are outgoing. I think if I had to play, Drew, it would either be under. 43 is probably still a playable number, but again, conditions are going to be really good here. You mentioned it's at Chase Field, indoor with fantastic temperatures and no wind. But I would say that, you know, Gundy's probably more apt in his playbook to have 1 or 2 trick plays. And one key thing here is that I read where Mike Gundy said this game is very important to us. Probably a stepping stone toward next year off of a poor season this season. So if I had to play a side, I would trust OSU.
Ralph, are you liking anything here with the Cowboys and Badgers and Chase Field?
Wisconsin right now has 17 players in the transfer portal opting out or injury list for this game. So that leads me one way. You have Oklahoma State with 2 quarterbacks that have played, be it Rangel or Gundy. They're listed as and. Braylon Allen is the question mark to me. He's been banged up. He might not even play in this bowl. He's listed on the injury report as questionable. There was questions about him wanting to transfer. He says he's committed here. So to me, it's one way. If Braylon Allen doesn't play and the line doesn't go crazy, if they announce he's out, I will be on Oklahoma State. Again, 2 quarterbacks that have played with Rangel and Gundy. You have each guy has started a couple games. You have a head coach that I believe has covered 5 straight games, and I'm a big proponent of when you have coaches that have had success in bowls, it doesn't matter what the regular season like. They know how to coach with the breaks, and they know how to coach well. He's the only coach in the last 5 years that has covered all of his bowl games. So to me, one way to go, Oklahoma State. I have not got there. It's not a play. If Braylon Allen is out and the game doesn't go crazy, I will be on Oklahoma State.
Okay, so Ralph, Gundy, good in bowl games?
Gundy is 6-1 in his tenure there, and he's covered his last 5 in a row. Yep.
Like it. All right, good stuff from Stat Daddy himself, Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. Next game up, guys, we got Wednesday, December 28th, the Military Bowl, Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, Annapolis, Maryland. It is Central Florida and Duke. 62.5 -3 here, Ralph. I don't know. First thing that comes to mind with me, late December, UCF playing up in the Northeast. Watch out here. It's Duke or pass for me, Ralph. Are you liking anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo exactly what you said here. How about this? When you look under bowl opt-outs, up until this point in time, there is one team where there are none reported. No one in the transfer portal, and no one has an opt-out, and that's Duke. You have a coach that knows how to get his team there. You have a team that's had great success. Your quarterback has thrown some picks. He has a 20-6 ratio. He's their number 1 rusher as well. But you have a defense that's middle of the road, an offense that's above average. You look at the UCF. Plumlee's hurt. Remember, Plumlee got banged up. Plumlee has a hamstring injury. Well, when you've rushed for 800-plus yards and you're the quarterback and you need your mobility to be better, that's a concern for me. Mickey Keene is in the transfer portal, so he's out. You have a couple receivers that are out. You have a couple DBs that are out. So this is in my mix to be an actual play. Plumlee's the question mark that can play the game stronger, but I am with you. It's Duke or pass for me in this one.
Great breakdown there, Ralph. Robbie, are you liking anything UCF and Duke?
Yeah, I think that this is all motivational, guys, and the motivation all lies with Duke. Ralph described the transfer portal and some other things. I will say this. You've got Mike Elko in his very first year with Duke in a bowl game, motivation for him to win, motivation for his players to play. Riley Leonard, the quarterback here. You could make the case that he might be even a better quarterback than John Rice Plumlee simply because he's a better thrower of the football than is Plumlee. With Plumlee hurt, as Ralph described, it's a hamstring injury. If they do have to keep him on the sidelines, whether he doesn't start the game or whether he starts and gets hurt, it leaves them with a true freshman, Thomas Castellanos, 9 of 16 for 75 yards this year, no touchdowns, no interceptions. It's a very difficult game to put him in against a motivated Duke team. I don't think he would perform that well. Again, just to reiterate what Ralph said, UCF is without their leading receiver, Ryan O'Keefe, if you've watched UCF this year, he's a big-time receiver for them and an important outlet for John Rice Plumlee. I think, and Ralph, I should have asked you this. I actually should have texted you because I was curious, and I don't even know how you get numbers out of a database for this, but one of the reasons why I like Duke is UCF just lost a conference championship game, and I wonder about teams that lose a conference championship, then get an invitation to a minor bowl game. This is the Military Bowl, a very minor bowl game, against a non-brand opponent. Duke is not, it's not like you can get motivated because you're playing an SEC team or a big name Pac-12 team or, Big Ten. This is Duke. So I don't know where the motivation lies for UCF in this game. But I would venture to say that teams in this particular situation, off a conference championship loss and then heading to a minor bowl against a non-brand team, probably don't care that much and probably don't have a great ATS record in doing so. So I like Duke. I think it's probably the right side. Duke, by the way, for those who like to, play in game, Duke in the second half this year, guys, is 10-2 against the spread second half. That 10-2 just indicates how good the adjustments made at halftime by new head coach Mike Elko were. I think Duke's the right side here.
Hey, Drew,
Like it,
I just want to bring up, I don't have that number. I will say this. I'm looking at Mark Lawrence's newsletter. Mark put that conference championship losers are 8-2 as a double-digit dog. Not quite the situation, but, that's different because you're playing a better opponent than you said, Rob. But I will say this, for those that go back and look, how many times has the SEC champion or the team that gets put against the group of 5 team in the bowl game, they come down, they have a poor performance because they're one game away from a championship run, they lose that game, and now they're playing a group of 5 in the bowl game. Last time I looked, I think it was 3-7 ATS where that big brother was playing the group of 5 that made the Power Bowl team, and they only covered 30%. But I don't have that answer, Rob, and it's nothing I can pull out while we're on the show. But right. I agree with you with, we've talked about motivation, and sometimes we don't make a big enough deal about motivation in these bowls. And those teams that come in and have a disappointing season versus those teams that are playing a bigger brother or an opponent it's rare that an ACC team is probably considered the little brother against a UCF team from the American Conference.
Like it, Ralph. Yeah, you bring up the kind of SEC team going against the group of 5. It brings to mind Auburn was that team. They were ranked number 1, and then they lost to Georgia and played UCF in the Sugar Bowl and lost. UCF blew them out, at least by I think Auburn was the favorite, and then UCF ended up winning the game outright. But I also bring that up because Gus Malzahn was the coach for Auburn going up against UCF, interestingly enough. But there is actually one angle here, Ralph. Malzahn was pretty good off of extended rest. I remember that at Auburn. He's been pretty good at UCF with extended rest. So I don't know. Maybe that's one angle pointing towards UCF. But I think that kind of the weather, I think, might be a little bit more important here. Duke and UCF, guys. We got one game left. Hit it quickly here. Liberty Bowl. We got Liberty Stadium here, Memphis, Tennessee, Kansas, and Arkansas. Big 12 SEC at you. Robbie, we get a total of 68.5 -3. That's the Razorbacks at home. What are you thinking here? Woo Pig Suey or the Kansas Jayhawks?
Yeah, interesting you said Arkansas at home, Drew, because in my notes here, this game is the Liberty Bowl, obviously played in Memphis, Tennessee. And when looking for reasons to play Arkansas here, I came up with recruiting because geographically, this is a very close area to Arkansas. And when you play these bowl games, this is an angle that we don't use. And again, we talk about how bowls are a different style handicap, but you do in bowl games play for recruits in some situations. And with Arkansas playing in Memphis, it's not a great road trip for them. Certainly not a reward road trip, a destination road trip, but it is Memphis. And the one thing that you can pull from a bowl game like this with a good showing is perhaps some recruits out of a pretty fertile territory. So for Arkansas, that was one thing, when I'm making a list of assets and liabilities, one of the assets for playing Arkansas would be, it's a chance to show for potential recruits. But everything else really lines up with Kansas here as far as side is concerned. Again, let's talk about motivation, right? Lance Leipold has this team in a bowl game. We haven't seen Kansas here since Mark Mangino. And so you have to expect Kansas to be fully motivated. They've played a tough enough schedule, guys. They've played plenty of teams that are comparable to this year's version of the Arkansas Razorbacks. So I don't fear them at the line of scrimmage being intimidated, when Arkansas gets off the bus being intimidated. None of that. I think Kansas certainly has lined up with some good Big 12 foes this year, showed well in many games. So I think they'll be just fine personnel-wise in this one. Comes down to I went through some rushing numbers because both teams like to run the football mostly, and they're both kind of mirror images, right? They both run it pretty well, and they both allow a lot of yardage on the ground. So I think ground games could be successful here. Question then becomes who can get me more through the air, who can hang on to the football better, because turnovers may turn out to dictate how this final score or the outcome results for us. I think Kansas, just off of motivation alone and ability to move the football and quality of competition this year. And again, this is not downgrading what Arkansas played. They played in the SEC West, but I just don't know. Sam Pittman, here's where I run into a dilemma, and maybe Ralph could help me out here. Sam Pittman certainly is a good motivator, and the kids play for him. I just don't know that this is where Arkansas thought they were going to end up to start the season. If you take Kansas, you're probably not getting a correct price here, a fair price. You're obviously, this game's already been bet down. I think odds makers kind of tilted towards Kansas to start with, because this is one of those games where, situational motivation factors are going to come into play. Still, if I had to play it, and I haven't, I would look towards Kansas. I thought that the total would be an area for me to go to. 69 is like right on the cusp for me here, guys. I can't recommend it strong. I wouldn't recommend under, because I think both defenses can get lit up. After all, Arkansas just got beaten by Missouri and gave up nearly 30 points to Mizzou, who couldn't move the football all season long. So I think very slight leans. KU, you're not getting the right price, but I think the motivation might kick in, and also a slight lean toward the over if, in fact, conditions are good, because how many times have we turned on the Liberty Bowl and seen rain and a soggy, muddy field? That's always a possibility here in Memphis.
Kansas versus Arkansas up next, Ralph. What are you liking here?
Drew with a funny. Rob mentioned, having two quarterbacks is exciting. So, having Jalen Daniels and KJ Jefferson playing, it's going to be one of the rare bowl games. Complete motivation for me. I completely agree that Kansas is excited to be here, never expected to be here, got off to the season. Arkansas expected much better. Arkansas's defense was absolutely horrific. They were number 117 in the country, allowing their opponents 50 yards more per game than their average. But then, Kansas was number 115, allowing their opponents 47 yards more per game. So you have a number 16 offense of Arkansas against opponents' average, and the number 117 D. You have the 43rd offense of Kansas, again, versus their opponent's average, with the number 115th D. Opt-outs, you give the lean to Kansas. Arkansas missing 3 receivers. They do have their top 2 receivers, but after that, depth is non-existent, as Knox, Jackson, and Sanders are all going to miss this bowl game. So I then went to the database. I may have talked about it on this show, or I'm bet on it. One of my favorite bowl systems are taking 6 and 6 teams, because then your motivation is this. You either go the entire offseason as a team that had a winning season or a team that had a losing season. However, these are 2 6 and 6 teams. So I did go to the database, and since 2012, when both teams are 6 and 6, the dog has covered 83.3% of the time. Only 12 game sample size, but the dog has gone 10 and 2 against the spread. And it makes sense to me, because if you are the dog here, you're probably not the better team. You are a Kansas team that, your win total was 1.5, playing an SEC team. So little brother, motivation, 6 and 6 dog angle has me leaning with Kansas. That offense-defense dichotomy has me leaning the over as well.
Like it, Ralph. Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV on Twitter. Ralph, I see number 1 college football bowls last 5 years, 44 in 20, 69%. Guys, check them out. Bowl packages up and available. Ralph, any final thoughts? Do you have a best bet for the show?
Add 2 more to that. I'm 2-0-1 so far this bowl season. So 46-20 the last 6 years in the bowls. I'm gonna go with Duke. Duke has a chance to make my card still, so there's no question. If you're an All Access client, you haven't gotten Duke yet. You might get Duke, you might not. I'm not sure, but it's certainly best bet worthy here on the show.
Yeah, I like that setup for Duke as well. Robbie, what are you liking here? Best bets. Any final thoughts?
And are we allowed to agree with the person that goes ahead of us? I wanted to say, if we're allowed to agree, I'm going to go all in with Ralph. I like Duke.
Yeah.
Central Florida, to me, just doesn't pose a real good makeup of a bowl team here. I described a lot of the reasons why, Drew. I just don't see the motivation for UCF off of the conference championship loss and now playing Duke with a banged-up quarterback. And if he goes out, a third team, true freshman, lots of guys in the portal. To me, Mike Elko's done a heck of a job. Ralph just talked about where Kansas's season win total stood at 1.5. I think it was bet up to 2.5. Still, they exceeded that early. Duke, same type of thing. I mean, most people thought they were going to be a cellar dweller in the Coastal. They turned out to be really good. I'll take Duke.
Duke, the Blue Devils, guys. Rob Veno, Ralph Michaels, I'm Drew Martin. That does it for Best Damn College Football Show. Guys, please smash that like button. Feel free to comment below. Pens up. Cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in.
In the spirit of the holidays, we want you to celebrate with your favorite Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicappers and do it at a discount by giving you a one-time 25% off everything you can fit into your cart between now and midnight on December 25th using coupon code GIFT25 when checking out. While this coupon can only be used once at Wager Talk and once at Sports Memo, the value is unlimited and there is no limit on what you can add to your cart when redeeming. Daily, all access, season, pick your team, and even mix and match handicappers as the combinations are endless. Remember, there is no limit to the number of handicappers at Wager Talk and Sports Memo you can lock in, but coupon code GIFT25 will expire at midnight on Christmas. On behalf of everyone at Wager Talk, Sports Memo, and Gold Sheet, we want to thank you for supporting us in 2022 by watching our videos, following us on social media, and trusting us with your wagers. However you celebrate, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.